Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Why Wasn't It Better? I am your host, Patrick Darms.
I'm your co-host, Anton Paras.
In 1965, David Lean followed Lawrence of Arabia with another sweeping epic, Doctor Zhivago. Based on Boris Pasternak's Nobel Prize-winning novel, the film promised everything. A grand love story, the Russian Revolution as a backdrop, one of the most famous musical themes ever written, and the kind of cinematic scope that only Lean could deliver. The result was a massive box office hit, 5 Academy Awards, and a pop culture footprint that lasted for decades. And yet, critics were never fully on board. For all of its beauty and spectacle, Dr. Zhivago has been labeled cold, bloated, and emotionally distant. Today, we're asking the question, how can a film this big, this lavish, and this successful still feel like such a missed opportunity? Why wasn't it better? And here to play that balalaika with us is a longtime favorite return guest, Paul Kind. Welcome back to the podcast, sir.
Thank you very much for inviting me. A shame I don't have such an instrument here ready to play, but really looking forward to discussing this film for sure.
I have to admit I was not that familiar with the balalaika.
I struggle to understand how you actually pronounce it, but the balalaika sort of, we'll talk about that instrument in the film, but strange looking thing, very distinctive.
It is both very relevant to this film story and also has nothing to do with it.
Is it up there with any other particular instruments that are a bit obscure?
The glockenspiel?
Glockenspiel, definitely. What is it called where you just put water or a liquid in champagne glasses and just put your finger around the rim?
I know what you're talking about, but I don't know what it's called.
Yeah, that's always weird to me. Ben Franklin invented it.
Did he really?
Yeah.
He invented quite a few things, didn't he, in his time?
Yeah, he did. That's a random one. Quick bit of admin before we get into this. As always, we thank everyone for listening. If you're new to the podcast, please follow, subscribe. Every follower matters. We encourage you to comment on YouTube and Spotify. You can follow us on all the social medias. We're on Instagram, we're on X, and best of all, Letterboxd, where you can see our full list of films that we intend to cover. Links to all of those are in the description. And if you really like what we're doing and you want to help support us, head over to Patreon. It's patreon.com/WWIB podcast. You can support us directly financially. You can get access to episodes a full week early and ad-free, plus access to some exclusive bonus content. So, Dr. Zhivago, this could have been a season finale for us, Anton, if you think about it.
It's fair with how big it is.
It's big in every way possible. The plot, in case anyone is not familiar with it, the life of a Russian physician and a poet who, although married to another woman, falls in love with a political activist's wife and experiences hardships during World War I and then the subsequent Russian Revolution. The film was released on December 22nd, 1965 by MGM, directed by David Lean, screenplay by Robert Bolt, based on the novel by Boris Pasternak, starring Omar Sharif, Julie Christie, Geraldine Chaplin, Tom Courtenay, Rod Steiger, Alec Guinness, Ralph Richardson, Shaban McKenna, and Rita Tushingham. The budget was $11 million, that is $112 million adjusted for inflation. And then the box office, just prepare yourself for this, $48 million, that is $2.53 billion adjusted for inflation. Anton, this might be a record. That is 25 times the budget.
Making
one of
money.
The best returns I've ever seen.
People love a love story.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of unfathomable. That's like Avengers Endgame money, Avatar money. I mean, this is nuts.
Or even, I think another aspect of this, think how much movie tickets used to be. You add that up to get this.
I think I read in 1965, 66, it was like $1.50 to see a movie.
That's crazy, man.
I'm assuming it was the equivalent in the UK, Paul. Like, it was pretty cheap then.
Oh God, yeah, yep, probably, yeah. Probably about £1.50, I think, when I was a whippersnapper, yeah.
And this has an 84% Rotten Tomatoes score. Paul, you're the guest today. I don't know if you enjoyed this film, but why did you want to appear on this episode when I offered Dr. Zhivago to you?
Great question. So, I'd never seen this film. It was a film that obviously had been on TV numerous times throughout my lifetime, but I'd had no desire to watch it because it was described as a love story. It's not really my genre, but I knew it was described as an epic, and obviously it was directed by David Lean, but still no real urge to kind of watch it, and given the length of the film, required a lot of dedication to get it through. You're sort of doing the research and people saying, oh, yeah, I watch it every Christmas. It's a great story, really epic. I thought, oh, okay, this is a great opportunity to finally kind of make the effort to actually watch it. And fortunately enough, it actually was on the BBC. So good timing. And so I was able to watch it in its full glory. And just to sort of see what those kind of great films used to look like, and what makes a great love story in such a sort of and really interesting historical period as well. So I was really looking forward to it, and then I watched it.
I said this a minute or two ago. This really could have been a season finale for us. This is one of the biggest films of the 20th century, full stop.
Yeah, it's a pretty huge film, right?
Adjusted for inflation, it is the 8th highest grossing film ever. Just to give you an idea of how popular and financially successful this was. I would say it's still overshadowed by Lawrence of Arabia. This is not quite as famous as that. This is a very well-known film, but the cultural footprint, you want to talk about this 60 years later, Paul, I would imagine like individuals your daughter's age, I'm certain have heard of Lawrence of Arabia. I don't know about this film.
I very much doubt anyone from that generation's even remotely heard of it.
You agree about Lawrence of Arabia, right? That film seems to still be well known.
Well, I think also people have used that for inspiration in a lot of their own films, and the way that it was shot, the way it was edited, the certain classic elements within Lawrence of Arabia that get shown in films throughout the last sort of 20, 30 years as people that get inspired by that. I wouldn't say that you'd get the same sort of response from something like Doctor Zhivago, purely, I think, also because it is a very niche story.
Anton, I want your take on this. When I was a kid in the 90s, I was very much aware of this film. It was a very famous film. And I think it's faded over the past 30 years somewhat.
Yeah, I think that is super fair. Now, a lot of the references to Doctor Zhivago that I think of from growing up is the influence that it has on media. Think about the music and the themes always appearing in either other TV shows, being referenced, especially in popular media, especially when I think of like shows I watched in like the 90s. It was again it was featured in the episode of The Simpsons. I talk about The Simpsons a lot. And I think like that's because growing up and watching that, there's always been a reference to Dr. Zhivago. There's no way to not know about it. But then I'll just say this, for youngsters today that may not really recognize what Dr. Zhivago is, or even its influence as a film, how can you not think of romantic films today and the amount of influence this film had on that, right? So a lot to just say there, and we'll dig in more on this film.
Trivia question for you both. What James Bond film references this one? I'm going to be disappointed if you don't get it.
From Russia with Love?
No. I was about to say, yeah, that was too obvious.
That came out before this.
Oh, fair enough.
Paul, you were on the goddamn episode.
Not Live and Let Die.
No, you were on the episode.
Spy Love Me.
Yeah. Remember Laura's communication music box plays, not Laura, Triple X's?
Yeah.
It plays Laura's
theme.
Well, that's the thing about this film. I mean, I made sure to include the point about the music theme in the intro for this. I mean, the theme music to this is far more famous than I think the film itself. Everyone knows that theme, that music. It's a super famous musical.
I was going to say, with the music, that is all. I mentioned that it's referenced very frequently in media today.
Still.
And I think like that's what's the staying power. Definitely a large part of the staying power for the film.
Have either of you read the book?
No.
Okay. Paul, if you thought this movie was slow, don't read the book. I have tried to read it. It's challenging.
Is it one of those ones that's almost impossible to put to film, do you think, even though someone's tried?
Yes. I actually, one of the reasons why I'm pretty kind to this film, by the way, I do like this film quite a bit. We don't have to keep our opinions all the way hidden until the end of the episode where we give our ratings. I do think quite highly of this film. This is incredibly challenging source material to adapt. Not just the scale of the story in terms of the events that are depicted, but this takes place over decades.
I was going to say, go ahead.
The character names, you're dealing with a lot of nicknames, Pasha, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This was very difficult to adapt, and I think they did a commendable job bringing what they did to the screen.
There were a few examples that I saw online of just how difficult it is to actually adapt War and Peace or Les Miserables. It's spanning so much history, and characters go through like decades of their life. It's just, we already see how long this film is.
I think in today's world, probably Apple or someone like that would turn this into a 10-parter.
I mean, I'll say it now. I think it would be better as a 10-parter because as dense as this story is and as long as this movie is, I still think they gloss over huge chunks of the story where there's gaps in the movie where I was like, wait, what happened? How many years just passed?
Well, what if I told you there was a series that was made in 2002?
I've seen it.
British television drama with Keira Knightley.
Ah.
Yeah, and Sam Neill.
Have you seen it?
Completely passed me by that one.
I've seen parts of it.
It's not bad.
I didn't finish it.
It's not bad. It's no masterpiece.
Well, if it's got Keira Knightley and she's not the most accomplished character actress in the world.
I quite like her.
Yeah.
You didn't like her in like the Pirates of the Caribbean movies?
She's okay, but she needs a lot of support around her.
Okay. Did you see her in the Boston Strangler movie? It came out, I think, a year or two ago. She's really good in it. What about Pride and Prejudice? That's not on your radar, is it?
Yeah, you're going into domains that I stay clear of.
All right. Pride and Prejudice is my wife's favorite book and movie, so I've seen that probably 30 times.
So, Boris Pasternak began writing his novel in 1945, but did not complete it until 1956. The manuscript was smuggled out of the Soviet Union and published in 1957. It became a worldwide bestseller throughout the First World. Pasternak won the 1958 Nobel Prize for Literature. Due to being labeled as a traitor by the Soviet government, he refused the prize and died in 1960. Producer Carlo Ponti became interested in adapting the novel as a vehicle for his wife, Sophia Loren. Coming off the enormous success of Lawrence of Arabia, David Lean wanted to make a more intimate, romantic film. Peter O'Toole was Lean's original choice to play Zhivago, but turned it down. Rod Taylor also turned it down. Max von Sydow and Paul Newman were considered. Omar Sharif was the first actor cast. He loved the novel, and when he heard Lean was making a film adaptation, he requested to be cast in the role of Pasha, but was ultimately went to Tom Courtenay. He was surprised when Lean asked him to play Zhivago himself. Lean had to convince Ponti that Lauren was not right for the role of Lara, saying she was, quote, too tall, end quote, and confiding in screenwriter Robert Bolt that he would not accept Lauren as a virgin for the early parts of the film. Kind of an insult. And Jean Moreau, Yvette Mimieux, Sarah Miles, and Jane Fonda were considered for the role. Julie Christie was cast based on her performance in Billy Liar. Rod Steiger was cast as Komarovsky after Marlon Brando and James Mason turned the part down. Since filming in the Soviet Union was impossible, the production settled on Spain as the primary location. They are faced with the warmest Spanish winter in 50 years. Many winter scenes were filmed using artificial snow. Principal photography lasted nearly 10 months, beginning just after Christmas 1964 and lasting until October 1965. Most of the scenes covering Zhivago's and Lara's service in World War I were filmed in Soria, as was the Verikino estate. The Ice Palace, as Verikino, was filmed in Soria as well, a house filmed with frozen beeswax. Some of the winter landscape shots were filmed in Finland.
Can I ask a question about the house?
Yes.
The frozen house?
Yeah.
How did it get frozen inside if all the windows and doors were shut?
How do you know that? How do you know? One small little window left open. I tell you what.
How would icicles have been dripping over every surface?
It's a hell of a winter in Russia. You know, you think you've got it hard. In Russia, it's twice as bad.
Oh, no, I don't pretend to have it hard in North Carolina at all. It's quite pleasant.
In Soviet Russia, ice freezes you.
Yes.
Doesn't it get to like minus What's like minus 60? Don't they have the coldest places on Earth?
I would think. Yeah, either them or like Canada or something.
It gets cold in Siberia.
Yeah. Anton, I'm sorry. I interrupted you, and I feel bad
No,
about
it's good.
that.
No, it's good. It's good. Some of the winter landscape shots were filmed in Finland and Canada. Despite some harsh critical reviews, the film became a massive commercial hit and sold an estimated 124.1 million tickets in North America. So that's over $1 billion in today's money. And yet it wasn't the biggest film of 1965.
Do you know what was, Paul? We talked about it earlier offline.
Was it The Sound of Music?
Yes.
Makes sense.
It made more money than this. It's just not.
That's so gangster. That's great.
But it makes sense. I mean, it's a big family film.
Yeah.
You know, Julie Andrews was Christopher Plummer, you know, very well known. And the musical had been around for quite some time.
I was thinking about this because, Anton, we're going to cover a film later this season with Julie Andrews in it. Was she in the conversation for biggest female movie star in the world at the time, coming off of Mary Poppins in The Sound of Music? Her and Elizabeth Taylor, like, who would have been bigger than her?
It's really hard to say, just because this was the time in Hollywood you had to be like a triple threat, and you had to be incredibly talented, especially be at top of the game. And Julie Andrews on top of the world at that point.
Peak of her career, right? Sound of Music had to be, right?
Yeah, no doubt. Like, that is peak Julie Andrews.
Yeah, Paul, we're covering a Hitchcock film that she was in with Paul Newman, Torn Curtain.
Oh, right. Okay. Interesting. I haven't seen that in a long time.
It's kind of a clunker. It's not one of the better Hitchcocks.
Yeah, I always felt like Julie Andrews was like slightly kind of constrained by the fact that she was very much a family type of the films she did were very family orientated, and she tried to steer a more sort of edgy.
Yeah, you don't picture her in like a Cold War thriller.
No, because she expected almost to burst out into song, sadly. I don't want to type, I could understand her frustration. It's like, I don't just sing and dance. I am an actress in my own right. You do expect her to suddenly burst out into a great song at any point.
This film, Doctor Zhivago, selling 124 million tickets in North America in 1965, 66. That's nuts. Considering the population of the United States at that point was about 150 million, and you factor in Canada. All right, Mexico has a lot of individuals too. But that's an incredible amount of tickets.
Yeah, that's huge. Canada's population at the time probably wasn't that large.
No, it's not anything now. It was a 30 million now. It's not much.
I was going to say even now it's not huge.
There's way more people in California than Canada.
I'm sure a lot of it's down to the sex appeal of Omar Sharif and Julie Christie, right? I mean, he'd come off the back of Lawrence of Arabia. He was considered very much a sex symbol, and any kind of romantic references always sort of went back to him. And it must have appealed to sort of a very broad spectrum of women as much as men being dragged along during that period. And also, obviously, cinema was the go-to medium at that point in the 60s.
Right. David Lean was a huge name. I mean, the novel was very famous, having won the Nobel Prize. It was very politically sensitive. It had to be smuggled out of the Soviet Union. But let's talk, why wasn't it better? Anton, I have a feeling we're going to get a lot of comments about our takes on this film.
Well, bring them into the comments section, or send it directly to us.
Yeah. Nobody made you do it. It's your choice.
There we go.
Let's start with the cast. The two leads of this film. I thought Sharif was miscast. He looks lost in a lot of scenes to me.
This was one thing I noticed. The scenes were already very long, which long scenes within lean films are pretty typical. But I feel like his acting was a bit stiff. I don't know. What are your guys' thoughts?
Well, I think half the problem is the character itself. It was difficult to actually make a very empathetic person out of it because of the way that the story rolls. He's, you saw him in Lawrence of Arabia. He was a fantastic actor in that, got amazing range, and it was really curtailed in this. It was very limited. Now, whether that was, but, the chemistry and things like that between the two, I don't think worked particularly well. I mean, it's described as one of the greatest love stories. But did you feel like, wow, come on, guys, get it together. You've spent all this time together during the First World War and, get it on. And I don't know. I didn't feel anything, certainly from him. And whether that, as you say, Pat, was it a miscast? I find it hard to judge it that way.
I've never seen him in the lead of anything else. I don't, so I don't have anything else to compare Sharif to. I'm familiar with him in supporting roles, very famously like
Lawrence
Lawrence of
Arabia.
Arabia.
Yeah.
I agree with you on the chemistry thing, but I do think some of the choices that he makes in this film, he looks confused in a lot of the scenes, like he doesn't know what to do. But I also agree with you about the sympathetic nature of the character. I don't find Yuri Zhivago to be a very likable protagonist at all.
I was really shocked, to be honest, just because my expectation was to follow these two through their life, leading to this beautiful romance, and I just couldn't warm to him at all as a character.
He's very passive. A lot of things are happening around him that are driving his life, and he's not really in control of much.
Do we feel like maybe it's the difficulty of characterization, trying to capture the essence of this character? It is a bit difficult.
But also, could you argue that that was actually a point? The fact that everyone was swept along by the events that were going on around them, and they really didn't actually have much agency in that. Was it a deliberate attempt, or just that he wasn't? He did just go with the flow on very much a lot of the situations throughout the film.
The one thing he could control was his poetry,
which we don't actually hear any of. We get told about his poetry a lot. A lot of characters are like, "Oh, are you the poet?" And they're like, "I love your poetry." We never actually hear any of it, though. I wish we had. But no, to answer your question, Anton, or at least I'm going to try to answer your question, he's supposed to be a sympathetic figure, I think. He's a doctor. He's a poet. He's a guy who the love story is about him. The title of the film is literally him. It's supposed to be about him. And yet, the actual story of this film, I find all of the background events, all the Russian Revolution stuff, far more interesting than his actual story.
And you do that, and then you then bring in the Julie Christie character as well. And again, I sort of sympathize more with her because of the experiences she has throughout that film.
Yes.
And some of it is quite, obviously very brutal. Again, not a kind of love story type of element that I'd expected. It completely threw me. When I saw the whole scene with Rod Steiger, I was like, oh, okay, interesting.
I think the juxtaposition of Julie Christie's performance up against that definitely felt very striking.
I think she's really good in this. She is no doubt helped by her looks. I actually was surprised to discover she won an Academy Award the same year, but not for this role. It's for a movie called Darling, which I've never seen. But you're right, Paul. Like everything that happens to her in the film, it's very easy to sympathize with her. And yet, I still was not sure if she actually loved Zhivago, or was she just... The affair that they have in the film, is it out of convenience? Because she doesn't seek him out at any point. He pursues her directly and then later indirectly when he kind of just stumbles into her because she's in Yuriatin, right? But is she driven by love? Is it by survival? Is it by circumstance? I found her character motivations unclear, even though I liked her performance.
Yeah, I suppose it isn't really your typical love story where two people fall madly in love with each other, but they split, and then through circumstance, and then they come together at the end, and everything's up rosy. Their story is quite fragmented, and literally half the film is they haven't even got together. I mean, apart from the First World War section, it takes a good while before they actually come together and go and live out in the Urals.
Right, and of course they work together in the World War I sequences, but they're not lovers.
And I know, I don't know what you felt, but did you get a sense of sexual tension through that period?
I think that's where it's tough around anything that I saw on screen. It just felt very animated and more passionate on Lara's side versus Dr. Zhivago's side. I don't know if that's just the characterization that we wanted that was meant to be shown on screen, but it did feel a bit more one-sided. I think that it's not typical of what people would expect of like an epic romance film. It was more so circumstance driving the situation.
And I suppose also with the Yuri character, he wasn't exactly great with his actual family, his wife, his son, and then when like his wife has a daughter, and it's just like, huh, okay,
He's just like, I'm out.
yeah,
It's the biggest problem with it. How am I supposed to root for this guy?
yeah. It's such a weird dynamic, and as talk, that so many people went to see this and describe it as the love story.
But you wouldn't describe him as aloof, right?
He's aloof with his wife and his family.
Yeah, but like I feel like there's such a different stylization when you think of a character that is aloof.
Would you describe it more as selfish?
I think it leans more towards that, a bit more.
Well, I mean, we can talk about it now and then later because I have it later in the notes for like the actual writing of this film. But for this epic love story that this film is touted as, it is a just giant celebration of adultery, and
Yeah.
that makes it in some ways hard to root for the two leads, right? The two lovers who eventually do become lovers about 2 hours into the film. But the other main problem for me, I think they're completely outshined by the supporting cast. All of the supporting characters in this I found to be far more interesting than Yuri and Lara.
Oh yeah, so many intense performances.
Really genuinely great performances. Rod Steiger, Ralph Richardson, Tom Courtenay, and then there's a really, really small part for Klaus Kinski. But can we start with Rod Steiger?
Mm-hmm.
Whenever in a scene I felt nervous.
He dominates. Paul, would you say underrated actor? Underappreciated?
Oh, yeah, very much. I know he obviously eventually did get some, recognition, but such a great character actor. I really loved him in this film. It just far outshone the main cast. Like you say, Anton, every time he was in the scene, it's like an element of danger of what is he after? What's
Right.
going to happen next?
It almost felt like I was the one getting questioned.
Yeah.
I completely agree with you, Anton. You're uncomfortable, and yet, he has an incredible amount of charisma.
Mm-hmm.
So there's like 5% of you who kind of is rooting for him in the late. Remember in the later scenes when he shows up in Yuriatin and he's trying to do the right thing by redeeming himself for Lara and her kid, and then by association helping Yuri. And you know the whole time he's not a good guy because of what happens in the first half of the film. You know he's a complete scumbag. And yet it's such a brilliant performance from Steiger. Is like there's like 5% of you as the viewer who you're kind of like, it's nice that he's doing this. At least that's how I felt watching it. Like that's I think a testament to Steiger's acting. Paul, you're right. He did get recognition. He won an Oscar for this, or not this. He won an Oscar a couple years later for In the Heat of the Night, which, by the way, brilliant performance. You called him a character actor, but he could obviously do lead stuff.
Yeah.
I think he's very highly thought of as an actor, and yet I still do think he's underrated. Anton, I kind of want your take on this. I think he's one of the most outstanding talents I've ever seen. Anything I've seen him in, he is magnetic.
No, absolutely. I mean, especially with this film, I think it's why, especially in a film like David Lean's, you get this, you can appreciate it more, I think, because there is always, again, an emphasis on the dialogue and the ability of characters to interact. It's so human in that way. It doesn't, the camera doesn't cut away from that, and we really see these performances shine.
I was trying to track his screen time. In the first hour of the film, he has just about as much screen time as Zhivago. Did you notice this?
Well, I suppose he kind of sets up her story, though, doesn't he? Really,
he does. But I do think it's an odd decision by David Lean to do this, because if you know nothing about this story and you go into this film blind, you could mistake Komarovsky for the protagonist in the first hour of the film, because he's actively driving the plot with Lara. And I don't think I had ever noticed that the first few times I had seen this film. Because, Anton, I saw this as a kid. I don't know what compelled me to watch this as a kid, other than I was a history buff. Because this is not a film that I should have been interested in as a kid.
This one was very available at the local public library.
Yeah. My grandparents had this on VHS. It was, of course, it was 2 tapes.
This would maybe just, when I think about like broadcasting on TV, maybe Turner Classic Movies, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that might be it.
But as to your point, Pat, earlier about the supporting cast, part of me really wanted to know what happens between the sort of beginning where we get introduced to them, and then when they kind of reappear further into the film, their journeys seem far more interesting. And their characters, especially the Tom Courtenay one, where
yes,
he literally changed from sort of this like idealist into this dictator type of character and then I felt cheated at the end when they basically just said, "Oh yeah, he committed suicide." And that was it. It was like, what? You can't just say it. You got to, But I guess that's not his. The film isn't his story. But I did feel well cheated out of that.
Komarovsky too. There's this comment that he makes actually to Tom Courtenay's character. What's his character? Pasha.
Yeah.
Antipov, and then he changes it to he becomes Strelnikov. He becomes the Terminator. The reason why I think Steiger's performance is by far the most interesting in the film is he is introduced to us as this aristocrat, member of the upper class, right? It's not exactly clear what he does when we first meet him, right? He's just this upper class guy who is obviously very comfortable with the czarist regime. And yet, I think he tells Zhivago at one point, or Pasha, or Lara, I can't remember which. Remember he tells them about the Bolsheviks? Well, they might win. I think they can win. I have a few interesting contacts. So we know very early in the film he is smart enough to be playing both sides, but they don't expand on that in any way. And then, of course, later on, he has a position of power within this new Bolshevik government during the Civil War. They don't expand on that either. And then, of course, he ends up disappearing from the film, just like Tom Courtenay's character does, Paul. But the supporting characters in the film, far more interesting, far underdeveloped.
And considering how long the film actually is, you'd think a little bit more time spent on that rather than, I don't know, the love story element. But then it wouldn't be Dr. Zhivago, I suppose.
Anton, Tom Courtenay was nominated for supporting actor for this. He was the only member of the cast nominated for an Oscar. How the hell was Steiger not nominated?
It's a good question, man. It's a very good question.
I'm telling you, he's just overlooked. He's an Oscar winner 2 years after this, but have you ever seen him in anything else, like The Pawnbroker? He's really good in like On the Waterfront.
On the Waterfront.
Yeah, he's just incredible. Mars Attacks. Years later.
Was he in?
He's in Napoleon.
I was gonna say there was
Waterloo.
a Western.
He's in Waterloo.
Waterloo, yeah.
Yes.
There was a Western he was in, I'm pretty sure.
He was in a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
Is this his best performance that isn't In the Heat of the Night? Yes, right?
I feel like, especially just considering the context of this film, it's a hard carry, right?
He was in On the Waterfront, but I haven't seen that film in a long time, so I can't
He's
really
amazing
comment.
in that movie.
Yeah. He was also in the Amityville Horror, which I didn't realize.
I haven't seen that movie.
Right. Holy
I haven't
crap.
seen that movie in forever.
Oh my gosh. What else was he in? We gotta Google this now. I probably should have had this information available.
Let's see.
The Hurricane, Illustrated Man, The Last 4 Days, which I've known. Waterloo, as you said. Who did he play in The Longest Day? Did it say?
It says a destroyer commander.
Oh, right.
No idea.
So just a bit part then.
Yeah. He's actually not in a lot of stuff that I've seen. This is kind of interesting. Man, he's in some shit.
He's in a lot, I'll tell you that.
Anton, he's in... Have you seen End of Days?
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
with,
of course.
Arnie.
Yes. Oh, God, what an awful film. Man, he's in some shit. He's in a movie directed by Kiefer Sutherland. That can't be good. Am I overrating him now? I almost feel bad. I feel like he's an amazing actor.
Yeah.
No, he's a...
Sorry, Anton.
Go ahead, Paul. No, I was going to say he has such iconic performances.
You know why this is maybe the highest compliment I can pay an actor. I thought he was British, and he's an American actor.
Him and John Lithgow?
Yes, everyone thinks he's British. Paul, did you see Lithgow on The Crown playing Churchill?
Yeah.
Pretty good, right?
Yeah, it was, yeah.
Yeah.
But I felt it was better than probably Gary Oldman's version of it.
I agree with you. I think that might be a hot take, but I agree with you.
Yeah, I'm still impressed that this guy used to be on Third Rock from the Sun.
He's going to be Dumbledore.
He also don't forget the Hendersons, right?
Yeah.
Well, the Bigfoot and the Hendersons, that was it, wasn't it?
I'm talking cliffhanger.
Hey, dirty punk slags. One of my favourite bad films, that is.
Komarovsky has some really rough, like brutal scenes in here. The rape scene for sure. My favorite scene in the whole film, on the train car with Yuri and Strelnikov, Tom Courtenay's character. I know he's a bigger actor in Britain, Paul Courtenay. He got nominated for this film. You're right about his character. He's a really, really interesting character. He is magnetic every minute he's on screen, particularly in the later scenes where he's finally revealed as Strelnikov.
And, saying like his story arc actually could make quite an interesting film. The idealist turn dictator and finally murdered away.
The personal life is dead.
That scene has the best dialogue in the film. What is the full line that you were starting, Anton? He's like, the personal life is dead in Russia. History has killed it.
Which is, I think this is what you mean. Like, I totally get what you mean when the background of this film is so much more fascinating. The Bolshevik Revolution, everything around just the shift in power, the mindset. It is fascinating.
It's one of the most important events, I think, of modern history. But just from a personal standpoint, that whole transition from Tsarist Russia to communism within a few short years is just, to me, such a fascinating 10-year period to read about, because you basically go from the most extreme political shift probably any country on earth has ever experienced in just a very short period of time. And of course, it's not just any country. We're talking about the biggest country. Paul, you can attest to this. Not all monarchies are created equal. This is a very, very different monarchy than what you have in Britain. This is a absolute monarchy. Very different.
Absolutely. And also trying to be an absolute monarchy in such a vast country as well, and the treatment of those people. But as you said, the impact on that was profound, because other countries were then obviously concerned about possible changes in their countries. And the rise of communism throughout Europe was a major concern. So it's and obviously England, Britain has all the links to all the royal families one way or another through Queen Victoria. So obviously it did have a profound impact.
Was this the same timeline for Anastasia?
It sure was. That episode will, I think, release just before this one. There's a reason why I put them together on the schedule.
Goodness.
Even though that movie has no historical basis whatsoever.
I don't know. I'm pretty sure there was a talking bat in one of the scenes in this film.
Bartok?
Yeah.
No, in reality, Anastasia was bayoneted and shot to death in a house in Ekaterinburg, unfortunately.
Sad.
Very sad. Have you gotten to that episode of The Crown yet, Anton?
No.
Okay. Let me know when you get to the 5th season. The good line from Strelnikov in this film: you put your knife with a fork and a spoon and it seems innocuous. Perhaps you travel with a wife and child for the same reason. I love that line.
How do you think nowadays someone would respond to an accusation like that?
I think most people would not know how to respond to that.
I'm just shut up.
I loved it though.
It's get off my back.
That's why I think this story is so kind of frustrating in a way, because there are some truly brilliant scenes in this film.
No, I agree. It is fantastic dialogue. It really stuck out.
Courtenay in that scene, Paul, I think that's probably what got him the Oscar nomination, because he has to be basically the Terminator, right? He's ice cold, but you can tell he's also very insecure in the same scene. He never blinks in the whole scene. It's fascinating to rewatch. Does the whole thing without blinking at Zhivago. Just really interesting character.
I read some analysis on the character, and one can interpret that this is more of a composite of the people that had to let go of personal aspirations to be for the good of the party, and any of that contempt then is had for Zhivago, for someone who can pursue life's pursuits.
Yeah, he says the personal life is dead for a man with any manhood. It's there's a lot of ways to read into that. Rest of the cast. Geraldine Chaplin is Tonya. You really do feel for her. They do her dirty here.
Not kind. Not a kind story.
No. She's still alive, by the way, as is Tom Courtenay. They are the only surviving cast members that I could confirm. Of course, she is Charlie Chaplin's daughter or granddaughter.
I didn't know that.
Yes. I believe she's his daughter. One of his daughters, one of his children. And then, Anton, when you actually do get to the latter seasons of The Crown, Geraldine Chaplin plays Wallis Simpson, the Duchess of Windsor, in seasons 3 and 4.
That's so fun.
What episode? Are you still on season 1?
No, I'm on season 2.
Okay.
Savoring.
Okay. Do you mean, by savoring, do you mean oh, shoot, I forgot about that. I'll watch that in a few weeks.
It's more the baby came and And then it was the coldest winter.
They're
Yeah,
not
that's
short
not the
episodes.
easiest show to put on with the baby. What were you going to say, Paul?
They're not the shortest episodes either, so it's not like a 25-minute kind of watch an episode. Changing the subject completely, and you can go. So I've just finished watching Alien TV series, and
I'm sorry.
yeah, you know my feeling about Alien 3. Well, times it by 10. It is an absolute disgrace of a TV series.
Is it just a mess?
It's a complete mess, and it's not just because I love the Alien franchise, but the storytelling is so poor. There is we're talking about in this film. There's no one to root for. In this one, it's double down. It's like there is no interesting characters. They're so bland. The decisions they make are just so preposterous. And it just doesn't make sense. And they've used the kind of Alien franchise to create a story that isn't really about Alien. It's a bait and switch, total bait and switch, and it's almost a combination of that and Blade Runner as well. It's a combination of the two things, and it is. I was getting so angry, but my wife, my daughter, they said, "Yeah, it's all right." I was like, "It's all right."
Did you just watch it with them for like family stuff? Because like, why would you expect it to be good?
I didn't, but I watched the first 2 episodes and it wasn't bad. It was like the production value. He really tried to. The director forgot his name, but he did the Fargo TV series, which I absolutely love. And this first episode was wow. They basically did Alien in like a 45-minute type of the Alien film in about 45 minutes. I thought, okay, this could be quite interesting. And then the logic just went out the window and the characters were just boring. And the things they tried to introduce are like, well, that doesn't make any sense. So they're not consistent with it as well. So they say you can't do this. And then the next episode they do that. And it just defies logic. And I'm sorry, I'm getting ranting about it because I just cannot believe this kind of garbage gets made.
Paul, you got to stay off any Alien sequel that isn't the first one.
Yeah, that's the only series that I think that's gotten a lot of love because it's improved and actually gotten good writing has been Predator. That's the only one that I've heard among sci-fi aficionados, like Predator's actually gotten deeper into the lore and improved because of how they've built upon it. So check it out.
Yeah,
I think I've heard really good things.
Anywho,
what did you guys think of Doctor Zhivago 2?
Doctor Zhivago 2.
What's the one? Would you make one? The Son of Doctor Zhivago, The Return, or Doctor Zhivago does Miami or warmer climes, or has another affair, plays the Makalele. Sorry, in concert.
Claude Makalele? What? The Makalele position? This is a very long film. We're going to talk about the writing now.
Mm-hmm.
I mentioned this earlier, how this is a love story that is a celebration of adultery. I mean, I'm joking, but I'm also, that's true.
Yeah, it's romanticization. Say that.
Yes. Well, here's another flaw of the love story, because Paul, you were talking about this is a very weak love story. It takes 2 hours to develop. It takes a long time to get there.
I think the thing about it, when you try to create a love story around these 2 big historical events, the First World War and the Russian Revolution, you keep separating them and then you eventually bring them together and it just simply takes too long. The gap is so wide and the initial contacts, the chemistry, the reasons why they should be together was it more down to circumstance, the fact that they were in the same hospital, nursing these soldiers and they kind of fell in love, but it never built up. We had their backgrounds first, then we have a short interlude of them together and then they split apart again. And that to me didn't help the pacing of their love story and their relationship.
Couple problems with it too. To your point, is it just by circumstance? And then with the sympathy of the characters, Anton, like at one point, Yuri is writing to his wife about this hot nurse that he's working with.
Kind of weird.
Like he's like, Tonya, you have to meet this hot nurse that I work with. Her name's Lara. I would totally bake her a quiche. And then later, I should have mentioned this earlier when we were talking about the characters. Is his wife just supportive of what happens? Remember when she writes him the final letter? She's like, by the way, Lara seems like a really nice person. I hope you're happy.
Just live with it. I think this was... I kind of thought about like other films that this kind of felt like, where adultery is involved, or at least like longing for someone like in a relationship. Isn't there elements like this in like Casablanca, right? And then you could see a bit of the influence into like even Titanic, right?
She's not married in that though, and
She's not.
she's being forced
She's
into
not.
that. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So it's a bit different.
Oh,
but
can I say something before you
yes,
continue? I read an interview with James Cameron. Dr. Zhivago was a major influence on his writing of Titanic.
You can see it.
Yes. Continue.
Yeah. It's this romanticization of looking for, I guess, like a soulmate, deep love, like true love, and how maybe it can even happen not immediately, but maybe sometimes out of circumstance. I feel like that was really tough, especially when it's billed as like a romantic epic, is that it doesn't feel quite like a more traditional love story that we typically have today. But I kind of see that same influence now upon like exactly like Titanic, and even then compared to contemporaries like in Casablanca. It's like that longing for like your true love.
I agree with you, but then I think they slightly undermine it here because he just doesn't seem that bothered by the fact that he loses his wife and child and they have to leave the country, and he doesn't make any attempt to find them or leave the country. He's just kind of like, eh.
Well, I mean, the answer is clear, Patty's just a horrible husband and father.
You're joking, but he is. He's a deadbeat, and I think this film gets a pass for it in a lot of ways. It's a storytelling flaw for sure.
There's no repercussion, right, for the adultery. There's no like, yeah, there's not real, other than, I mean, because of like how his life turns out. It's not like he had his only legacy, right, is what remains is of his writing,
which we still don't hear.
Which we don't hear.
No, I was trying to figure this out. Like, why does the story not make any attempt to explain why he doesn't try to follow his wife and kid to Paris? It just glosses over it, and that's I think one of the problems with this, Paul. Major characters, Pasha, you already brought him up. Komarovsky disappears from the film. Or no, Pasha disappears from the film. Tonya disappears from the film. Komarovsky disappears for about 90 minutes of the film. All of these characters are underdeveloped. This film is 3 hours and 20 minutes long, and I feel like the final act of this film is completely rushed. They're trying to squash years of this story together. When does the film story end? It's like slightly before World War II. I was thinking like late 30s maybe, but it's not clear. Because the daughter of Zhivago and Lara is like, what, 17, 18, somewhere around there?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So that would put it into the 30s. Especially he was interviewing her at like a big dam project that they were building by the looks of it. You know, That would have been a late 30s thing.
Right.
And actually, as a sort of point, the bit where they first get together during the First World War, I think it would have been more interesting that they sort of use it as a way of saying people finding comfort in such a desolate, dangerous situation, that we always try and find human comfort where we can in these situations. Sometimes it goes against your moral codes or whatever, but, you know, sometimes we need a bit of love, a bit of comfort, a bit of, you know, togetherness. And maybe at that point they then split up and said, okay, we were just a victim of circumstances, but we're now going to go our separate ways, leave our separate lives, and then bring it together. I know, actually, it is actually true love. That would have been a better story. But instead, they just kind of like, you know, every now and again looked at each other in a kind of comely way. And then that was pretty much it of a love story. It was half baked at the beginning. And I just couldn't feel invested in it.
You get to the final act, you want to talk about half-baked. So Komarovsky offers to take Lara and... No, she doesn't have the kid by that point, right? She's going to take... Wait, no, is it Lara, her daughter, and Yuri? He offers to take them to the Pacific coast, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and then Yuri can't go on the sled, so he falls behind. He can't go to Paris to pursue his real family. He doesn't end up going to the Pacific coast with them. But what the film also doesn't explain, what happens with Komarovsky? Why does she not go to the Pacific coast with him? Because she ends up back in Moscow where she loses her daughter, right? It's not explained how they get separated. And then she ends up dying in a prison camp, which Alec Guinness's character it's all not,
out of nowhere.
None of it's
out of nowhere.
None of it's explained.
Yeah, it's like we're kind of running out of time. We need to sort of wrap up some of these elements. Let's just talk about it, and
And
you feel like you've invested all that time and effort, and then they've just chopped.
the decision to use Alec Guinness's voiceover to provide exposition, he's just like, she died in one of the prison camps. I'm sorry.
Kind of a throwaway.
Do you remember the scene where he confronts Yuri after he steals the firewood? It does this really weird thing that they don't do for the rest of the film, which is Alec Guinness is narrating what he says to Yuri in the scene. It's like he's telling the story to his niece, but then Yuri is Omar Sharif is responding with his own dialogue, but they're not actually speaking to each other. It's the only scene in the movie where this narrative device is used, and I can't figure out why. I'm wondering, was this some kind of post-production decision that David Lean made? It doesn't fit in with the rest of the film where, Yuri says something and he's just like, I told him he was wrong.
Who knows? I mean, it could be like this scene doesn't make sense, and it's actually we need to add a little bit of exposition, and a voiceover kind of covers that. But as you say, it's a unique device that was only used just right in the middle of the film and then dropped.
Anton, you were cringing.
It's just, I think why have it in if it's not consistent?
I feel like we're being very harsh on this film. We do like this, right?
I mean, look, think about those scenes. Don't they still look really, really good?
They look amazing. They do.
So just one slight point that you raised, Pat, was, the decision when they're going to head off to the East Russia to escape. And they said, oh, there's no room on the sled for you, Yuri. It's like, okay, so they're literally going to abandon him. And he's like cool about it. And it just seems a real big plot contrivance to separate them. Yes. Can't believe he couldn't have fit on a sled of that size. But I always nitpick about things like that. But it just seemed a really odd.
I don't think it's a nitpick. I don't think it's a nitpick. I think it's a legitimate problem with the plot. Like, why doesn't he go after them or go to Paris? Why does he just end up going back to Moscow? The film doesn't answer it.
Doesn't make sense.
Because think about it. How long is the journey from Yuriatin back to Moscow? It's thousands of miles. So he could go thousands of miles to the Pacific coast. He could go thousands of miles back to Moscow, or he could try to find his family in Paris. He just goes back to Moscow. Why? We're kind of ragging on this film. What were the highlights? What did we like?
You got to talk about the production, right?
Yes.
What was your favorite scene, like visually?
There's a couple of them. The scene in the train car, I think, is the best scene in the film, where Yuri meets Strelnikov and they have that conversation. I think it's brilliantly acted and written. All of the World War I stuff, where you see what happens, Pasha. I think the best shot in the film, Pasha's glasses fall off in the snow and you see someone's body hit the ground. I think it's absolutely brilliant. All of the stuff with Alec Guinness's character, where he's doing the narration, although I think some of it's lazy in some scenes, where he's talking about how the party inserted him in the soldiers or in the army to foment revolution. That's really interesting.
The Ice Palace actually stands out for me. That's really beautiful. Even if the way that the ice manifests in the house doesn't always make sense, it is just very atmospheric. It's very beautiful. Amazing set pieces. I feel like it's such grand and sweeping landscapes across, whether it's like a flower field, anything on a train. The surrounding areas are just lush and beautiful, or just vast.
I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I did not feel warm at all throughout that film because of the way it's shot. Each scene just looked bleak, cold, miserable. Even in the houses, they had the iced windows. Everyone was kind of huddling around the warmth.
Yes.
And I didn't feel particularly comfortable throughout the film. And I thought it was a brilliant nod to the production values, because it did, to me, give a sense of what it must have been like living in those kind of conditions through those winters.
There's that one shot in the first hour of the film where Lara is telling Pasha about her affair with Komarovsky, and it's shot from outside, and the camera moves up to the window, and you see the candle inside melting the frost on the window, and it's absolutely brilliant. I can only imagine how many takes they had to do, because you can't hear any of the dialogue, but you know what's going on. It's incredible visual storytelling from Lean. There's a lot of shots like that in this. Paul, to your point, you feel cold the whole time. You really get a sense of like when the heat's not working and the characters are talking about it, but you can absolutely feel it. Anton, the landscapes point you were making, you could pause any frame of this film and print it out and hang it up on your wall. It looks like art. It's some of the best cinematography I've ever seen in a film.
It just looks incredible.
I think from a storytelling perspective, and this is, it's in some ways it's a knock on the love story, but it's a bolstering of the rest of the film. The actual scenes where we see the revolution transpiring, there's two call-outs I want to make. Early on, when you see the Tsarist soldiers breaking up that demonstration on the streets, that's a really effective scene. You see Yuri's reaction shots to all of the violence that's taking place. I think a more modern film would show a lot more blood. That's a great scene. And then, of course, the scene where the soldiers begin to mutiny and they kill the officers. That's the stuff that I find the most interesting about this film. Like scenes like that. Anton, we get to see a guy with a monocle get taken out.
Yeah. I think it's fair to say that it's because of this historical setting that we have our own interpretation, but then we also see it through the lens of Yuri. And I think maybe even it's because of that blend. This is just me being a bit more critical. It can feel a little bit more disjointed.
Right. Because the love story, does it work with the revolution stuff? Sometimes not.
So you know what? This is where I'm going to point at another film that had a big emphasis on this is the backdrop of World War II, but this is not going to be about World War II, like Casablanca, right? And with such a big backdrop, focus on this love story, the espionage of it all, the intensity of it all. It's also a bit more of a compact film compared to this one.
Right. No, it's not an epic.
No, it's not an epic. But that's probably just the challenge of the medium.
I think you're right. I mean, the highest compliment I can pay this movie is that Lean perfectly captures the sense of scale, the vastness, the grandness of this. This would be very challenging to make now just because of the crowd scenes alone. They would use a lot of CGI, and you really get, there are scenes in this film where I feel like I am watching the scale of the Russian Revolution take place.
Mm-hmm.
That's very difficult for a film to achieve. And, something I mentioned earlier in this recording is this is a very challenging book to adapt. And although we've been taking a lot of the storytelling to task, I do want to commend Lean for, I think, mostly succeeding at what he was trying to do, because a lot of what takes place in the film is brought to the screen here in a very coherent way.
I agree. Really well said.
I think in my notes to myself, I put the world building, if you like, was fantastic. The fact they built out streets to look like like Moscow with the trams and everything. You really felt you were there, even after you sort of mentioned, Anton, in your production notes, saying it was all shot in Spain and places like that. You really felt you were in there. And then when they went off to the Urals, you could see the vast distances that is the Russian country itself. That you go to these very bleak places and you may have a country house, but it's days and days away by train, etc. And I really got a sense of the country from all of that and all the things, as you say, Pat, of the events that were going on during that period. But trying to do that and a love story is as you say, to Lean's credit, he did the best job possible, but it's tremendously hard to do because you do get sucked into that. Oh, look at this event with the soldiers coming together, or or the train and everything else that went with all of that, or the massacre in the streets, sort of throw you, and then you're back into the love story again. But the set designs, the houses, the shop that Laura lived in, just beautiful. I mean, the set makers, huge credit to those people. I did a magnificent job, and the ice house and everything else, just incredible. Even if it was,
there were a few shots in the film where I actually paused and rewound it just to appreciate it, just because of how good it looked. I mean, this is just about technically perfect in terms of how filmmaking for 1965.
Well, it was the whole opening sequence when he was burying his mother. And it's just the middle of nowhere with a few graves and the snow and everything else, and the sun hitting the snow just right. I mean, him and Freddie Young, just spectacular cinematography. And those scenes where they went through the village that had been burnt to the ground, and all the people and the women trying to get the children on the train.
Yes.
Very harrowing stuff.
Did they actually burn down a village? Because that's what it looked like.
It looked like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, this the thing. You can see every dollar on screen here.
Of course.
This doesn't have a 4K restoration. Needs it.
Absolutely needs it.
But do you think that talks about the wane of its popularity now? That it may be not something that they, at this moment in time, they want to invest that kind of money? I mean, it deserves it.
I hope they do, because Lawrence of Arabia got one, of course, very famously.
But that's always been in like the top 100 greatest films. I think Zhivago's been slowly slipping down. It's a sort of very different type of film.
All right, the score.
All right.
Super famous main theme. Anton, this has kind of been on our, we've kind of been touching on this with the recent recordings. Is this too main theme reliant, as beautiful as it is?
Ooh, it definitely flirts with that. It's in that category, right?
Maurice Jarre uses the main theme a lot in this film.
And it stood the test of time of being used in many other media.
It's a great score. I'm not going to hate on it. I think it's an all-time great movie score. I can't remember anything but the main theme, though.
Well, it is so dominant, as you say. It's every time they kind of came together, the theme would fire up. The love elements, the theme would fire up.
But he also uses it in scenes where there's not love, which I found odd.
I think it's a good call out. There's not much variation to it. Definitely a really good example of just leaning on the main theme a bit too heavily.
But what a catchy theme, though. It's one of those, once it's in your head.
It is.
Yeah, I just want to get myself a balalaika and play it.
So I read this doing the research for the film. The main theme was so popular, it was actually turned into a pop single with they gave it lyrics, and it was released as it's called Somewhere My Love.
Who sang it?
Multiple artists recorded versions of it, and it charted in 1966.
In Russia?
No, in the West. I don't think this film was shown in Russia, but that's how popular it was.
Sorry, at the time, Soviet Union.
Yes, the Soviet Union. I don't think Leonid Brezhnev would have been okay with that.
I reckon
Mr. Gorbachev, play that tune.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this soundtrack.
You got to think that they would have had a secret screening of it, though, wouldn't you?
I'm sure the Politburo saw it. So, Anton, to answer your question, Paul Webster took the theme and added lyrics to it to create what was called Somewhere My Love. Ray Conniff recorded a version that reached number 9 on the Billboard Hot 100 in 1966, and it's been recorded by Roger Williams, other artists who I've never heard of. Frank Sinatra recorded a version of this.
So basically all crooners.
Yes.
Yeah.
Crazy. But I guess it's not. It makes sense, though. A film that did this well at the box office, yeah, they would have capitalized on the soundtrack. It does make sense.
Russian pop duo Tattoo?
Yes, sure.
No, they didn't.
So this film won 5 Oscars. Adapted screenplay, cinematography, film editing, original score, and production design. I'd say all deserved.
It really is one of the most beautiful films I've ever seen.
I agree. It's aces. For the visuals, aces. Anything to add before we start to wrap this up?
Let me just check my notes.
Modern films don't really come as close at all. I can't think of any modern epic that has come anywhere near close.
I was going to say, Anton, I think I would actually like to see this story adapted into some kind of a 6 or 8 or 10 part series, but I don't think any level of effort or money could capture the scale of this. I just don't.
Yeah, even when I think about big epic films of the past decade, is there anything that comes close visually?
Dune?
Maybe. I think what's tough is also this, and this is super unfair. I think it's just being able to capture landscapes and settings historically, but without relying on this special effects and visual effects. I think knowing that it's not an unfair, it's not fair to say oh, that's a bit of a crutch, but I mean, just seeing what was done with such a legendary film, it feels like, will anything really hold a candle?
Well, since Pat's talked about June, I'd say Villeneuve is about the only one I think that's ever got close to representing an epic scale, even using CGI. That's believable. I think we're still at that stage where we know we're looking at something that's not real in a lot of films. Whereas lean films, when you look at Lawrence of Arabia and you see those soldiers on camels sweeping through a village, and there's 100 of them, and you think that's not CGI. When you watch Apocalypse Now and you see the helicopters flying overhead and all the soldiers running around, that's pure coordination and great direction. And we still haven't reached that point yet, but I definitely think we're getting close. But we still know when we're watching something real and what something is. It just doesn't quite get sort of epic enough, to be real.
So, Paul, as the guest, what's your rating for this?
Right, okay.
I have no idea what you're going to give this. I'm very curious.
Okay, so I was really pleased you asked me to watch this. And, especially as I said at the beginning, we described it as a classic, a love story running right through this. I'd never realized actually it was so long, but it was like, hey, okay, that's fine. And it threw me because it was so unlike my expectations of what a typical love story is. The sweeping historical narrative, the use of Omar Sharif as a character, and I thought I was going to have more empathy and sympathy for the two characters throughout all of this. And it was a real struggle for me to sort of identify with them and feel something throughout that 3 hours and 15 minutes, But I was definitely swept along up with the cinematography, the world building that he'd created, the landscapes. And like I say, I really felt cold throughout that movie, which is a testament to how it was shot and produced. And although I can't get around my head around the fact that it's technically a love story and the fact it was so popular, and I look at it and I cannot fathom why it's so popular, but I can only assume that the two actors in it were sex symbols at the time and people wanted to see them together in this kind of epic story. And that is why it is so popular, plus the theme that goes through it all. It's one of those films I probably will never, ever, ever see again. But I heartedly recommend all our listeners, if you've not seen it, to watch it, or if you haven't seen it for a while, to watch it again. And I'd be really interested to get, if they could post their feedback, because I'm so confused about this film because it is defined as a classic. You guys clearly enjoyed it, but for me, I'm stuck between the two worlds of it. Is it a classic? Is it actually really good storytelling? Is it entertaining, in fact? So I'm going to give it a B-.
Better than I thought.
I did tweak it.
Okay, you gave it a little boost. Okay.
I get a boost, yeah.
Anton, I think sometimes a film can be so visually stunning that you don't care about much else. This is one of those for me. We were very harsh on some of the characterization and storytelling decisions made in this film, which I think are very fair. This is a classic to me for sure, but it is a cut below Lean's two prior films, Lawrence of Arabia and Bridge on the River Kwai. I think those are masterpieces. This flirts with greatness, but it doesn't get there for me because the love story is boring to me. The two lead characters and the performers are far less interesting than the supporting players. Everything else around them that's going on around them I find far more interesting. It is long and sprawling, and I have to be in a certain mood to watch it, but I do think it is rewarding because of how visually stunning and engrossing and the sense of scale that Lean gives this film. I hope that this film is not being gradually forgotten, but I think that it sort of is. It was once on AFI's list of the 100 greatest films, and for the 10th anniversary of it, it was removed. I certainly recommend it if anyone hasn't seen it before, even though I have to really be in a mood to watch this. There is more good than bad here, even though I think there are some just really significant flaws to this love story. I think it is a very, very flawed love story, but it is a very rewarding film to watch. I give Doctor Zhivago a B.
I want to get out of the way the aspects of the film that I don't love as much. That the flaws are, to me, the love story, not just, I don't know how to put it other than a little problematic, a little melodramatic, especially when we think of the chemistry between the two main leads, confusing at times. And that's just a bit of a lack in the storytelling. But despite that, there is something that really draws me to this film. The conversations, this very strong supporting cast. We've said stunning a lot in this episode. And I mean, there's no other way to put it. The cinematography is just absolutely stunning. I mean, sweeping landscapes, just capturing the vastness, the coldness of Russia. And I think it's that believability that makes this film so unique. It's because despite the fact that it's set in this time period where there's so much chaos going on, there are these characters that I think anyone can really see and understand. Maybe not so much Yuri himself, but more so with a lot of the supporting characters, and we really are invested in them because we are just shocked to see how the stories go, or even just empathize with what's going on around them. And I feel like that, with the backdrop looking so beautiful and feeling so real, that this is just a very well done film. If not, it's not perfect, but I think that it's absolutely a classic. To me, this film is absolutely a classic. I definitely will come back to watch it. I don't think that it's going to be anytime soon, but I would absolutely recommend this to people if they want something that's a bit more nuanced, mature, and takes some patience, but it develops, and it is quite a beautiful picture when you take the time. I give this a solid B.
This may surprise some of our listeners because we were really ragging on this earlier in the recording.
Yeah, I mean, listeners, if you have any qualms with any of our takes, please just let us know.
The more comments, the better. Well, that is it for Dr. Zhivago, and probably should have mentioned this at the top of the episode, Anton. This is part of our Christmas-themed mini-season, even though I wouldn't call this a Christmas movie. There are Christmas scenes in this movie, so it counts because we say it does. But Paul, always great having you on.
Thanks, guys, for giving me the opportunity to watch this film and to share my opinions with you guys. It's always interesting to get other people's perspectives because sometimes I do miss things that you guys sort of pick out, which I didn't necessarily appreciate at the time. So that's why I love this podcast.
Well, we love having you on, Paul. Can't wait till the next episode.
Thank you very much. Thanks, guys.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I promise the next film will be more fun for you to watch. And it won't be 3 hours and 20 minutes.
And it's a Guy Ritchie film.
Oh, blimey, great.
He's going all the way to the Urals. That's it for this edition of Why Wasn't It Better? Thanks for listening, and see you next time.